What's going on YouTube? So finding a manual transmission hot hatch these days is quite the feat.
But when Toyota jumped into the segment with this GR Corolla, things have really been heating up.
So after living with this GR Corolla for the past week, was it everything we hoped it would be? Let's go ahead and find out. Now where else could we start out but under the hood for this GR Corolla? So you already know this isn't gonna come with your run-of-the-mill Corolla powertrain. This has a special powertrain. It is a 3-cylinder engine, but not just any. It is a turbocharged 3-cylinder, 1.6 liters, 300 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque.
Very impressive motor. You also have a 6-speed manual transmission as your only option. Additionally, you do have all-wheel drive that can split the torque distribution. Additionally, 24 mpg combined is what you're going to be getting out of this 3-cylinder.
That's the rundown of these basic specifications. Of course, we're going to go out for an extensive test drive later on and show you guys all this performance out on the street. But first, we'll close up the hood and take a look at this very aggressive exterior. Now, when it comes to this exterior design, it will be obvious to anybody that this is not your everyday Corolla. They basically started with the Corolla hatch and then went positively wild from there. And you can tell that right here in the front. Obviously, it is substantially wider than the traditional hatch. We also have a huge grille up here in the front, and Toyota's added a lot of little aerodynamic bits to the front end as well, so we have a lot of functional cooling. That way, you can go fast and not overheat. Now, as far as our headlights, these are pretty much the only element that really is retained from the regular Corolla hatchback. Full LED, you have these very large turn signal indicator and daytime running lights. You even have fog lights, which I'm surprised to see have carried on. Now, as you move around to the back, as you can tell, it is even wider than what you get in the front.
Yeah, I never thought I would say a Corolla's booty is fine, but I do like the way this looks, that's for sure. Drew, let's go ahead and hop inside and see if the taillights are LED on this GR Corolla. We have an LED brake light, LED reverse light, and LED amber turn signal indicator. So all 3 elements are LED. Even some luxury cars don't have all 3 elements as LED in the taillight. So I really do like the way this looks. I also want to point out we have the least aggressive spoiler. You can also get more aggressive spoilers as you go through the trim structure. Now, as far as this lower diffuser, of course, it's going to be very, very aggressive. This is a GR Corolla after all. The main focal point is the fact that we have a triple exhaust setup on this GR Corolla. Not 1, not 2, but 3 exhaust pipes. Let's go ahead and hear how it sounds. That is one loud 3-cylinder, that's for sure.
Now moving on to our wheels, you do have 18-inch alloy wheels, a nice gloss black design. Looks really good, especially with our enhanced 14-inch ventilated disc brakes that are in the red calipers with GR branding. As far as the tires, of course, these are going to be high performance as well. So we have 235 with Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. You got your nice black accent there, another big prominent GR branding. And we have gloss black finish to the mirrors, which will come with heating and blind spot monitoring.
Now, before we get any further, I do want to mention for the 2024 model year, the Circuit Edition does offer a blue flame exclusive color, which is super cool. I'll go ahead and show a picture of it right now. So if you're interested in that, that will be available for 2024. Now, as far as the length of this vehicle, it's 173.6 inches, which is about the same as the Corolla hatchback. Of course, it is quite a bit smaller in length than the Corolla sedan. And I do want to point out for your safety systems, because that's a really cool part about this GR Corolla, is that you're going to get all of your safety systems as standard equipment, including adaptive cruise control, despite the manual transmission. But guys, let's go ahead and get on the inside, and then we can get out on that test drive. And if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
And we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
All right, now let's move on to the interior. First, as always, we'll take a look at the key. Typical Toyota key fob, minus the fact that you do have dedicated GR branding, so that looks nice. It is a smart entry system, so you're just gonna reach behind the handle. That's gonna unlock the door. And looking inside the cabin, 95% of the cabin is going to be, pretty much your typical Corolla cabin, but there are some special differences. And we'll go through those as we go through the video. The biggest difference that I want to talk about right from the start, of course, is going to be the seats. So we have very aggressive sport seats. Here on the core model, these are going to be finished in a full cloth, but they still have the really thick bolsters that hold you in place really nicely. They're also surprisingly comfortable as well. If you choose the two other trim levels, this is going to be substituted out for a leather instead, and regardless, you have the GR branding up here in the headrest. The seats themselves are going to be manual adjusting across the lineup. This is also a good angle to see the GR specific floor mats as well as our aluminum pedals. But let's go ahead and climb inside. And I almost forgot to mention that it does have memory seats stored up here in your noggin. All right, so let's talk about the rest of the interior. Like I said, pretty much typical Corolla fare. Cloth trim over here on the armrest. Everything else is really going to be mostly hard touch. This top part of the dashboard is actually soft, and we do have a leatherette through here with the stitching detail. Lower panels are going to be hard touch, and we do have a traditional handbrake, but no armrest here in the center, so be aware of that when you're getting inside. Now, of course, to start up, put your foot on the brake, press down on the clutch, and press the button. Now, you saw from when I started it up that you do have a different gauge cluster. This is a full digital 12.3-inch cluster. It has, of course, special graphics. So right now, what I've got up is a boost gauge, which is really cool. So you can kind of watch that turbocharger work, and you really do hear the turbocharger, which you'll see a little bit later when we go out for a drive. You can change various things inside of this display. No head-up display or anything like that on this model. When we pull back to the steering wheel, this is one of the unique elements. We have this GR-specific steering wheel, nice leather wrap to this, good design. It is going to be manual tilt and telescoping, and I am surprised to see that we have steering wheel heating as well on the core, with the optional cold weather package. Let's turn over here to our storage. I already mentioned that we are missing a center console in its place. All we have is this little rubber pad, so obviously this is not going to fit any coupons or anything like that. We do, of course, have our two cup holders though, and we still have a front pad with a wireless phone charging pad, and then you have a USB connection over there, as well as your heated seat controls. This is also part of the cold weather package. Coming back to the shifter, like I said, you do have the 6-speed manual transmission. When you go into reverse, this is your regular backup camera. You do have some guidelines. They're not active though. Again, you have that traditional handbrake, which is really nice. Most of the rivals have moved to a electronic parking brake, so that's not as much fun, of course. There's your control for the all-wheel drive split. We'll talk about that more while we're driving. And then you got your drive mode selector right there. You do have a custom drive mode that you can select as well. As far as climate controls, single zone automatic, very basic, nothing exciting there. The audio system though, we do have the optional JBL sound system on board, so we'll go ahead and give it a sample. Overall sound quality is pretty good for this kind of vehicle. However, most of the week I really wasn't listening to music. I was just listening to the sound of the engine and enjoying the drive. All right, so let's talk about the display briefly. Just an 8-inch display here. This is running the newest Toyota software. So you do have your built-in navigation even here on the base trim level, wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. Up top, manual dimming mirror here on the core model. We do have LED interior lighting and no sunroof, of course.
Now, while the rear seat is definitely not a focus of the GR Corolla, let's go ahead and talk about what you're going to get back here. Now, I do want to point out, if you choose the Marizo, the rear seats are going to be completely eliminated, but here on the core trim level, you will have them. So let's go ahead and see how much space you got. 29.9 inches of legroom, 37 inches of headroom, so decent space figures. It's not going to be as spacious as a Civic Type R for reference, and you know, for someone who's larger size than I am, I would say you're going to have trouble fitting back here, but it's not too bad for someone who's 5'9", and this seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8", and we have about 5 inches of additional space. My feet can slide up underneath the seat, and we do have a middle seat as well, and it is surprisingly soft. I thought it would be a little bit harder, the seat itself, than this. Now, as far as features are concerned, we do have a center armrest with cup holders inside. We have a USB-C port and a 12-volt outlet, but no vents or anything. Of course, you don't expect a lot of amenities. The door trim, it's as hard as, you know, rock, and then that's pretty much expected, though, so do keep that in mind. And then down at the bottom, we do have a little bit of cloth for our armrest portion. We also have a cup holder in front of that. And let's check out the cargo area. So if I lift up the tailgate, of course this is a hatchback, so it's not based on the sedan, it's based on the hatchback, and that does afford you more space than a sedan would. 17.8 cubic feet is what we're going to be looking at cargo capacity wise. It's a pretty good amount. It's not too much bigger than a sedan actually, but I do keep in mind that you have this entire area to put stuff, but it's not going to be able to stack up very high because this is a very sloped off rear area. Now, as far as the seats themselves are concerned, they do fold 60-40 split. If I didn't have the cargo cover installed, it would be a lot easier for me to just fold these seats down. But, you know, in typical Car Confections fashion, you know, we like to measure things, and I am going to measure from the back of this seat back to the rear of the cargo area. We're looking at about 64 inches of space, which does mean you're going to be a little shy of hauling an average size adult bicycle, but you might be able to put a kid's bicycle in this rear area.
All right, guys, you know what time it is. It's time to head out on the road. This, of course, is the part of the video you've probably been looking forward to, us as well. And we're going to show you, of course, the performance. We're also going to talk about, you know, some of the typical things about living with the GR Corolla on an everyday basis as well. But the first things first, time to start off with a hard acceleration.
There is 60 miles an hour in the GR Corolla. Boy, this thing is fun to drive.
That's right.
Oh my goodness.
That is what the GR Corolla is all about. It's just having fun behind the wheel, and it certainly is a lot of fun. Accelerating is, you know, a big part of that because, like we said all throughout, this is not your everyday Corollas. You know, Corollas kind of put you to sleep, especially if you're a car enthusiast normally. But this GR does anything but that. The engine really has a lot of character, so again, that's going to be a 1.6 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. It doesn't sound like a 3-cylinder to me.
No, it does not at all. I think the sound is really a very important aspect of this GR Corolla because we've been behind the wheel of a lot of its competition. The Civic Type R, of course, is all new for the 2023 model year, and we drove that extensively on a racetrack and everything. And one of the things that I didn't really like about that car was the exhaust noise, and I do really like the way this GR Corolla sounds. I think it has a lot more character to it than that Civic Type R, which, of course, if you're buying in this segment of vehicle, you really want that character.
Right, that's something you're going to enjoy all the time, in addition to the 300 horsepower that this has.
Yeah.
And really distinct turbocharged whistle, so you can hear that as soon as you come off. You hear that whistle, which I think is really rewarding. Hopefully our mics can pick up on it.
Yeah. I'm trying to give you a little. Yeah, if you kind of goose the throttle like that, you can really hear the turbo, especially if you have the windows rolled down. You know, for a scenic like country drive, it is absolutely awesome just to hear the turbo in this GR Corolla. I mean, this thing is so pure. And really, the reason why this drive experience is so pure is because Toyota is only giving you the 6-speed manual in this GR Corolla. So, you know, the 3-cylinder has its bliss. I love the engine, I will say that. But I really love that Toyota is only giving you the 6-speed manual. They're just forcing you to have that pure experience. And that's just so rare nowadays. To have the manual transmission, and it does just make your driving experience so fun, especially out here on a back road. You know, it might be a little inconvenient in the city, but out here on a back road you can really enjoy that. Also, you're going to enjoy that we do have downshift rev matching, which is a feature you can turn on and off. It's the little button right here to the left of the steering wheel. That's already 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, 0 to 60 is about 5 seconds, depending on who you ask. Let's talk about traction. I think that's really an important part of getting that 0 to 60 time. And really, we haven't had any problems at all with that. Of course, a traditional hot hatch is going to be a front-wheel drive-based machine, and this is a front-wheel drive-based machine, but we have that GR4 all-wheel drive system. So that's very unique in the fact that you're allowed to change that torque distribution over here with our knob. So it starts out at a 60-40 split. When you turn that, you're going to go 30 to the front, 70 to the rear. That's not like a permanent split, but it is something that kicks in as you like corner to really kind of power you out and give you, dare I say, a little bit more of a rear wheel drive characteristic. Yeah. Not quite, you know, like a genuine rear drive vehicle, but it does give you a little bit more of a dynamic feel as you push out of those corners. Really cool characteristic on board. We also have a limited slip differential. Technically the core trim is not going to come standard with that, but since we have the performance package added to this, we do have that front limited slip.
Yeah, and I tell you, it really puts the power down. I've had 0 slippage, honestly. Even accelerating out of corners really hard, it doesn't do really any slipping at all.
Yeah.
Now we've kind of made it out to a highway to talk about some of your everyday livable aspects with this GR Corolla. That's one of the really cool things about being able to test this out for the full 7 days is that, you know, at a media drive you're maybe able to drive it around a track or whatnot, but you're not able to drive it on your home stretch of roads to really test out the ride quality and all of those things. And we've been able to do that this week, and honestly I've been very impressed with the way this GR Corolla has behaved. You would think it would be very hard-edged, and don't get me wrong, it is pretty hard-edged for a Corolla, that's for sure, but honestly, the ride quality is not bad at all. It does a good job of soaking up the bumps. I've been very impressed with the way these seats hug me in, and they're really quite comfortable. So the GR Corolla is one of those cars that you could certainly live with on the daily. It's not going to like jar your teeth out every single time you get in this car.
Right. It's also not like tremendously loud either when you're at speed. Which I think is, you know, kind of a good time to get into the sound level reading. We'll see what we get. Let Mason kind of go to the
6th gear.
6th gear here, just kind of cruise down the road and yeah, so we got 60.3 decibels. That's right in line with what I'd expect, and that's not even, honestly, that much louder than the Corolla sedan. I don't believe, just a few decibels louder than that we tested recently on this same stretch of road. So like I said, it's loud when you're accelerating, but it settles in and doesn't like have that really low frequency that sometimes like really hurts people's ears.
I will say at about 2,000 RPM, if you're just kind of idling around, it does have a real loud drony sound, but it's quickly gone away as you go up the RPM. So if you don't like that, you can shift your own gear, knock it down to 5th, and you'll be fine. And of course, there's a lot of good corners on this back road to talk about your driving dynamics and the GR Corolla. It goes without saying, this is a very, very fun car to drive. It is absolutely glued to the road, and especially with that torque distribution set on 70-30, like Drew said, it gives you the more rear drive feel behind the wheel, and it just really is a blessing and joy to drive. I love being in this GR Corolla has just been so fun this week. So.
Right. The suspension is going to be, you know, a fixed setup. So unlike the Civic Type R that does have adaptive dampers, this is just one way, but I think they've struck a good balance between everyday comfort and, you know, being really tight. It certainly has very little body roll as you go around corners, although it's definitely not equivalent to the track mode. The track mode in the Type R will rattle your teeth out, so it's not that firm, but you know, just keep that in mind. And I think this would be a good time to go ahead and get into our airball and slam dunk. I'm going to start off with the airball for the day, and we're going to say that is just kind of the overall cabin feel. Since we're talking about the Type R, it really reminds me that that's a lot more of a premium vehicle when you get inside of it. This does, you know, start out less expensive at the core trim level, but I would say the cabin is kind of like LE Corolla versus like an upper tier.
No center armrest, that bothers me.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem, although I do like that you have the traditional handbrake, so pros and cons, I guess.
Yeah, and as far as the slam dunk, I think that goes without saying. I really love the 3-cylinder and 6-speed manual combination that they've done here. The 3-cylinder just has so much character to it. I really love the way it performs out here on the back roads, and the 6-speed manual is obviously a very fun transmission to live with. So I just really love that they've done that on this GR Corolla.
Lastly here, I do want to mention the fuel economy real fast. 21, 28, 24 combined. So not too bad, you know, for a performance vehicle.
And lastly here, the warranty on the GR Corolla is going to be Toyota's signature warranty, which is 3-year 36,000 mile basic, 5-year 60 powertrain. Also, you do get 2 years of complimentary maintenance. And finally, let's talk pricing for the GR Corolla. Now, Toyota actually has a very affordable price tag for what you're getting in this model. It's about $35,000 as a starting point for the core trim level. Once you add options like what we have on this particular model, we're sitting at about $40,000 as tested. Now, of course, you can go up the trim structure. The circuit's going to cost quite a bit more, as well as the Marizo edition, which is super special edition. Hopefully, you guys wouldn't have to pay a dealer markup. I know we see a lot of comments that say that these GR Corollas are going for a high dealer markup, so do keep that in mind, that limited availability for these GR Corollas. And guys, that's where we're going to leave off on this in-depth review of the Toyota GR Corolla. This, of course, has been a pleasure to drive over the last 7 days, and we really appreciate you tuning in and watching this video, because you do make this all possible and help us to be able to get cars like this to extensively test out for 7 full days. So if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support and for being a part of our Car Confections family. If you're new to the channel, we want to welcome you into that Car Confections family by hitting that subscribe button down below. Now, if you haven't had the chance to go ahead and check out our TikTok and Instagram pages, we would appreciate a follow on those, as well as a visit to our all-new website, carconfections.com. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.